So last year I finished my university degree, and I remember the last exam like it was yesterday. I walked out of the examination room. It was bright and warm outside, but the only thought I can recall is that's it. 4 years of hard work for a ridiculously tall piece of paper with my name on it. Something that you could easily Photoshop, and you shouldn't do that, but you could. And at that moment, I realized that I had been following the wrong path. I was chasing society's typical path, and that's why my life felt kind of empty. All these things, the 9 to 5 that came with the degree, the Friday nights outside, the car that came with the pay, these weren't things that I wanted. These were things people told me I should want. And that's when I rejected all this stuff and decided that I was going to decide my life's trajectory. So over the year that followed, I completely reinvented my life on my own terms. I built a healthy lifestyle, I became disciplined, I transformed my physique, I became self-employed. And the reason I'm sharing you this is because I believe there aren't a lot of young men my age who feel the same way. Yet, not a lot of people are willing to talk about that. So here are the 5 main steps I took to take full ownership over my life. Stop being an addict, whatever it means for you. By nature, humans hate being unbalanced. We're always trying to maintain some sort of equilibrium. That's why when your brain experiences pain or discomfort, it seeks pleasure to rebalance your life experience. The problem is when seeking pleasure becomes your go-to response to everyday pain. That's when it turns into an escape, and that's what happens for most people, unfortunately. They engage in everyday behaviors that they think are pleasurable, but in reality, it's just their brain trying to escape the discomfort. They're coping, not really enjoying. Now, everybody has their own addictions, and I'm not talking about heroin addiction. It's just, some are more socially accepted than others. Your brain's reward was primarily designed for food, which is why today in this world, almost 70% of adults are either overweight or obese. It doesn't matter that much as long as it's not really detrimental to your health in the short term, but it doesn't matter if it's scrolling or for you it's eating, playing video games, working, or studying, whatever it is. Your mission is to become aware of these unhealthy tendencies and replace them with healthier alternatives. Now, how do you know if it's a bad habit and one that you should start addressing or changing? Well, it's really simple. It's something that's supposed to make you feel better, but leaves you feeling worse after you engage in it. No one has ever felt better about themselves after spending 3 hours on Instagram comparing themselves to, perfect bodies, and especially if they're already self-conscious, that's just destructive. The things you seek when you feel low are usually the things that end up making you feel miserable, not better. Even if it helps in the moment, as soon as you stop, you'll feel worse than you did before. That's your cue telling you that you shouldn't be doing this, at least not using that frequency. More than that, if let's just say every time that you're bored, you choose to snack, the habit will become your default choice when boredom strikes again. You're conditioning your brain. That's what you're basically doing. You're linking an emotion to an automatic behavior. And once it becomes a habit, it's very difficult to break. So if you want to get on the right track, you have to stop being an addict. Again, whatever it means for you. I'm not talking about crack cocaine, okay? Just stop acting compulsively and impulsively. You have to reclaim control over the unhealthy habits and behaviors that are keeping you from being your best self. Prioritize your health over everything. All my life, I've heard people say, my 20s were the best years of my life. And I always wondered, okay, but then what happened? Does this mean that the rest of your life was not that great? Because it's pretty much what you're implying. And usually after their 20s, then they get into an unfulfilling marriage and lock themselves in a demanding job, and they just put on weight and stop exercising. It's a gloomy reality, yes, but it's one I've seen time and time again. That's when I realized I don't agree with them. I think it works the other way around. You're supposed to build your foundation in your 20s when you have the most energy, time, and ambition. And the starting point for all of that is your physical health. You have to build your body and give it everything it needs to improve the quality of your life and the longevity, which is, I mean, do you want to live longer? So that includes great nutrition, proper sleep, and most importantly, exercise. Because the single best thing that you can do to set yourself up for success is to exercise on a regular basis, if not daily. Now, I'm always going to be advocating for resistance training and going to the gym because for me, this is what worked best and it's still working. So this is what works best. And if you're ready to take this path and reinvent yourself in 5 weeks, check out the link for Fitness Autonomy in the description. During your 20s, if not earlier, you need to develop the habit and skills that are linked to your foundation of health if you want to become the best version of yourself, because this is required. You need to be sleeping properly. You need to be eating properly. The problem is that most people treat their 20s like it's a free pass, or I feel like at least. They just party, overindulge, engage in unhealthy habits, and use the excuse of just living life, poisoning your body for 2 days and being underslept for a decade just to go out and see people on a stage jump up and down. This is not my definition of living life. I agree with the fact that your 20s are for exploring, experimenting, questioning, and getting to know yourself, but all of that can be done while building a solid health foundation at the same time. And the thing is that you'll never regret investing in your health. And it will pay off in ways you can't even imagine right now. Plus, you'll get jacked. Meanwhile, 99% of people around you will just put on weight. Tell nothing but the truth. I spent years going to parties I didn't really enjoy, simply because I was expected there and because I didn't want to offend anyone by, rejecting the invitation. The problem was, in doing so, I was lying to myself. I felt like I was forcing myself to go because of social expectations, and the fear of missing out, I feel like, was a big part of it. But this is a dangerous game because it comes down to self-deception. And most people seriously underestimate the danger of lying to themselves. Me first. Because what you need to know is that your brain encodes everything. You can't hide anything from your brain. If you're lying to yourself, your brain will encode it. It will record it, and if you do it enough, it will start to normalize it. That's no good. No bueno. Once lying to yourself becomes normal, your brain won't even need to tell you it happens. And there's a point in time where you lie to yourself subconsciously, and that's when you lose control over it. You no longer know what truth is, and at that point it affects your identity. So you need to cut that off. You need to establish trust with yourself first, and this starts with the simplest things. For example, I still sometimes catch myself telling white lies, little lies, just to embellish a story, like shaving off some time it took me to do something, or just inflating the price of something to make it seem more valuable. When that happens, and it will, you need to catch yourself saying it and replace it with, you know what? No, actually, this isn't true. And then correct the statement. Just to teach your own brain that you can do that. This applies not only to the conversation you're having with yourself, but also the conversation that you need to have with others. Because relationships are often damaged by the conversation that were never had, but should have been. Telling the truth is the only long-term strategy that works. And if you delay the truth, you're just building a false reality based on lies that will eventually collapse. So if you make telling the truth your default way of speaking and thinking, you will avoid, again, I don't know the numbers. It's just out of my hat. But 99% of the drama most people experience, you'll avoid that, at least. Learn even more after graduation. Before your 20s, all you do is learn. All you do is you go to school. As a kid, you spend most of the time just sitting and listening to someone teaching you something. You're trying to understand the world around you, building internal models and representations to help you navigate your environment, which is what you're supposed to do as a kid, is what you're supposed to do as a human being. But then usually what happens is that after graduating from high school or college, everything changes and people stop learning. That being said, your entire system is designed for adaptation, and adaptation is based on learning. So in nature, if you stop learning, you become easy prey. The thing is that in the comfort of modern society, you don't have to keep learning after school. And that's the biggest problem. You can live your whole life in the same environment, doing the same job, having the same hobby every weekend, and eating the same breakfast. Learning has become a choice, and you need to make that choice every single day, especially in your 20s when you have to build skills and make yourself valuable in the eyes of the world. Now, here's the challenge. Your brain, I'm not going to lie, wasn't designed for living comfortably in a condo and just, playing video games. It was designed for your survival. So to keep on learning, you'll have to adapt and put yourself in situations where you actually have to learn something, because your brain is naturally lazy and it doesn't like to do hard work. And learning is hard work because it costs a lot of mental energy. So your goal then is to put yourself in situations where learning is required. You need to cultivate a growth mindset and focus on improving your skills and knowledge over time. For me, a huge step was, moving to Canada when I was 17, because I had to learn a new language, a new culture, and how to interact with people. Basically learning everything from scratch. So I had to learn quite a bit. All of this became skills I now use in my day-to-day life. They increase the value that I have in the workplace. They help me navigate the world and improve relationships. Thanks to the internet, now you can become anything you want and learn anything you want, yet very few people keep learning after they finish school. So learn even more after graduation. Build on what you like, explore your interests, and do it in a structured way. Make time for learning, block time, and make it a priority, because learning is what gets you in the game and keeps you in the game. Keep calm during the storm. Most problems in life come from the struggle of emotional self-regulation, especially when you're a young adult. An emotional trigger leads to an emotional reaction. And then if you decide to act in the moment, you can do it impulsively, only to realize later that this was a mistake because you weren't fully in control. It's like when you argue with a friend or with your partner, and instead of calming down, you get more heated and you say something you shouldn't have. Or when you're stressed because of school or work, and instead of relaxing when you get home, you just indulge in cinnamon rolls for that sugar high that calms you down. I hate it. I don't like cinnamon. Or when you're so anxious about a job interview or a presentation that you can't sleep and you can't shake the negative scenarios playing on loop in your mind. Whatever it is for you, struggling to regulate emotional responses is part of being human. And it's a skill. And if you're willing to work on it consistently, you can make significant progress in how you respond to emotional or triggering situations over time. Now, I'd say that anger, stress, and anxiety are the ones to focus on first. And as a young adult, these can quickly derail your progress, success, and overall life. And this process boils down to self-regulation, which is your ability to understand and manage your emotional reaction based on your environment. So you can practice that in close relationships by being open and understanding the dynamics and recognizing what's happening in the moment. You need to become aware of the triggers that put you in a negative state of mind and notice them as they occur. And the most effective way to improve this skill is by keeping a journal. At the end of each day, you take 10 minutes, you sit at your desk with nothing but your journal in hand, and you just describe freehand in detail what happened during that day. How did you feel and what was your action? Treat it like data. Be objective. You're not here to judge yourself. You're here to understand what's happening. This is what will allow you to stay calm during the strongest storms. So as always, I hope this helps. Just trust the process.